Hi, welcome to Rocky River Library's 2021 Cleveland International Film Festival recap. Today, some of our adult services staff are going to be telling you about different movies that we saw at the Cleveland International Film Festival that we look forward to making available to you, hopefully in some way through our streaming services or in our movie collection in the future. So, I'm Beth. I'm one of the librarians at Rocky River Public Library.
I'm Dori. I'm the Adult Services Manager.
Hi, I'm Mary. I'm a library associate at the Adult Services Reference Desk.
So today we're going to be talking about the different films that we got to watch through the film festival. Because of the pandemic, the film festival is being offered in a much different way this year than it has in years past, and it is available for streaming. So it made it so that we could all choose films to watch on our schedule, which was definitely something unique to the film festival as a streaming service this year. Whereas in years past, you had to really choose the films based on their existing schedule. So that gave us a lot of freedom in making our selections this year. I watched 4 films for the film festival. The first film I watched this year was called A Perfectly Normal Family. It was made in Denmark, and it is a story of a girl named Emma and her life as in Denmark, where she thought she had a very perfectly normal family. But towards the beginning of the movie, it is disclosed to us that Emma's father, Thomas, comes out as transgender. And so, as Thomas becomes Agnete, both Emma and Agnete struggle to accept how this changes their relationship. The movie does a really good job of shifting the audience perspective to that of a timid child. So the whole time you're feeling pretty uncomfortable, kind of through Emma's eyes with this new reality for her. Uh, it is she, and throughout the movie, Emma is struggling with her own identity as her father transitions to a woman. It was a complex story. It was beautifully written. It was a neat story to be told. And ultimately, though very kind of abruptly, they do wrap it up into a nice little bow at the end, and it has, a happy ending. So, as much uncertainty as you have throughout the movie, at least you get a little bit of closure. The next movie I watched was called Games People Play. It is a Finnish movie. It was about a group of friends who are going to what I think seems like the most dreamy vacation retreat that must be. It was one of the friends' parents' kind of dilapidated old vacation houses on an island in Finland. And it seems like they have a history of going to this vacation house. And it's just supposed to be a weekend, but boy, oh boy, do they get a lot done in that weekend. Um, it so one little line that they start with towards the beginning of the film is, "It doesn't get dark here," and they at no point does the sun set on their weekend. It's about this like long-term group of friends. It was really a funny, complex story about how relationships evolve through friendships. The party really just kind of lasted forever for them, but there was a lot of drama involved in it. Um, they played baseball, which was supposed to be very novel to them, which I thought was adorable. They did a lot of cooking and eating and a whole bunch of drinking, singing and dancing, and there was a lot of really intimate scenes there as well. For considering it was never actually like the sun didn't go down at all, the actual ambiance of the movie was a little bit dark, but it just kind of like it focused on their relationships, but also the manipulations that people can have and affect each other and influence your relationship. So it was kind of deep. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. It was very funny, considering how dark it was. But I wouldn't say certainly wasn't like dark and twisted, but there were some scenes that were just like, oh, okay. So I really enjoyed that one, and that was called The Games People Play. The next movie I watched was a super sweet story called Space Boy. It's a Belgian film, and it's about a young boy named Jim. He's a very gifted, smart young man, and his father and him moved to a new town so that his father can work on a project and he is an astrophysicist. Jim in his new school gets paired with a girl who is just recently coming back to school after being out of school for a while because of an illness that they don't really get too deep into initially. But he gets paired up with this girl for a science fair, which is the perfect opportunity for Jim to work on this plan that he's been trying to recreate Kittinger's Excelsior project forever, where he creates a balloon and can like get up right into outside the atmosphere into space. He's determined to do this, especially after finding out some really deep personal things that his dad's going through that really fuels him to like remove any barriers from him doing this, and he takes it on upon himself to make it happen. It was so sweet. The relationship between Jim and Emma was just very sweet, and it really, really tugs at those heartstrings at the end. So, watch it accordingly with tissues, which isn't one thing I would say. One of the big benefits of watching something from home instead of in a crowded movie theater is you're not crying next to a stranger. So that I did appreciate at that moment in time. And then the final movie I watched for for the film festival is Goodbye Soviet Union. And it's an Estonian movie. They speak Russian, Estonian, and like Danish, I believe, in the movie because it takes place during the Soviet Union. It was kind of a funny plot considering it takes place during the collapse of the Soviet Union. So it follows Johannes, whose mother she's like fighting against everything that the Soviet Union is. And so she's not actually interested in being in the Soviet Union at that time. And she is a little ill-equipped to be taking care of her son at that age. So she leaves her son in the Soviet Union with her parents. And so Johannes is brought up in the Soviet Union, but he forms a very sweet bond with some school children. And then his mother goes to Finland to work because she can't get a job around. And so he's completely in his grandparents' care. It was very sweet. It was very funny. And it had a lot of like romance, a little like not dirty romance at all, or even extreme, just like very sweet childhood romance, some comedy, and some important history. But it was really, that was a fun one too. And considering the era, it was surprisingly funny. So I really loved all these movies. I can't wait to be able to add them to our collection, whether it's through Hoopla or Canopy, or, hopefully some of them get distribution on DVD or Blu-ray. So that's what I watched. I know we all watched For Mad Men Only, which you can hear our conversation with Heather Ross on our YouTube channel if anyone's interested about that. So Mary, tell me about what you watched.
Oh, hello, Beth. I watched 4 films as well, and like I was saying to you earlier, there's quite a few films to pick from, and I randomly picked these 4, and I got super lucky because I loved them all. You're gonna kind of see a theme of what I like because 3 of my 4 films are coming of age type films, and I like that in films, and I also like that in books. So the first film that I'll talk about is called Masha, and that was a Russian film. And it's about a 13-year-old girl named Masha who grows up in the 90s in Russia. She aspires to be a famous jazz singer, and she does have some pipes on her. She can sing. The thing that makes the story interesting is Masha lives with her uncle Pops, who is pretty much a mafia leader. And so the people that she is surrounded by is her uncle and his gang members, whom the entire neighborhood is fearful of and hates at the same time. So because she's 13, she's sort of a bit oblivious to this, not 100%. She has a bit of toughness to her, but she's also a bit naive. And as the story goes on, she realizes, what Uncle Pops is really about, and the damage that he does, and the damage of the people in his gang who protect her but who aren't necessarily good people. So we really kind of see her. There's two. So there's the young Masha, this young girl who plays her, who does a fantastic job, big eyes, very expressive. And that's most of the film. And then there's a small section of the film of grown-up Masha. She's like in her early 20s, and she's now in Moscow, and she's a singer. And she, for the short bit that she does a phenomenal job. So it's quirky. Quirky and not in a good sense. It's interesting in that think this is a coming of age mafia type film. And I know that sounds strange. When you think mafia, you think Godfather, but it makes for a good mix. It moves quickly, it's well paced, and it's very interesting. So I would recommend that. Another film that I watched, another coming of age story, is called Felicita, and that was a French film. And that is about Tommy. And Tommy is an 11-year-old girl. And the only thing she wants is to get to school on time on her first day of school. So this takes place in France. And the best way that I can describe this story is for those of you, for you ladies and anyone that's watching this, think of Little Miss Sunshine. And it's very similar to that. Tommy lives with her parents, who are very eccentric parents, and they're essentially, in the beginning of the story, they're essentially squatters, and they have to leave this place that they live like on the fly pretty quick because the family's coming back. And so the journey begins. Tommy's mother disappears. The father, we learn very quickly, is just newly released from prison. And an adventure ensues at that point. What we know, we see a lot of this adventure go on through Tommy's eyes, and a lot of times things are happening, and as a viewer, you're wondering, is this really happening, or is she imagining this? And that keeps the viewer on their toes. And she does a fantastic job. An interesting point of this is the young girl who plays Tommy is the director's daughter, and she's never done anything before, and she's fantastic in it. It has I don't want to say too much, but it has a fantastic ending, and it's full of car chase scenes. It's really good, and I highly recommend it. That particular film you can currently stream on Amazon Prime, so you might want to look into that. That's called Felicita. The third film that I watched was probably the quietest of my films, a little bit of a sleeper, but I still enjoyed it. It was called The Tailor, and that was a Greek film. And this is the story of a gentleman, gosh, I don't know, I would say he's like in his 40s or 50s, and he's an eccentric gentleman. He's a tailor, and he doesn't quite fit in anywhere. He's very eccentric, and he lives in the business that his father owns, being a tailor. So his father's a tailor, they have a business, and he lives there. The father, his older father, becomes sick, and now the tailor must try and save the business. So think of this kind of eccentric, lonely, loner type man, and suddenly he has to save the business. So he gets he's very smart about trying different things. He has an unlikely friendship with a neighbor, a young girl, and through her he meets a mother. He ends up changing how the business is run. He ends up he takes a lot of risks, and it seems very unlikely with someone like him, and they all pay off. So again, it's a quiet film. It's very slow and steady, but it's a feel-good film. So I do highly recommend that. And then the last film that I watched was Amy Tan, An Unintended Memoir, which was absolutely fantastic. I'm sure we have patrons who are also patrons of Cuyahoga County Public Library, and this was the film that they sponsored for the Cleveland International Film Festival. And so that's kind of why I chose to watch it, because I felt like our patrons would all be watching the same thing. And I'm so glad that it did. This film is a biographical documentary, and it is, the director is the late James Redford. So this was his last film. It's gonna premiere on American Masters PBS on May 3rd. So keep an eye out for it. So if you're familiar with Amy Tan, she's a fantastic author, has written many things. Most people would know her for The Joy Luck Club, Kitchen God's Wife, many others after that. She's written a lot of nonfiction as well. So the documentary goes into her growing up, how she became a writer, a lot of her personal relationships, how they affected her writing. And it's really interesting. It's really interesting, the things that affected her writing. It's very interesting. It talks a lot about her relationship with her mother, which was, what's a good word? It was a difficult relationship when she was younger. And she learned at a very young age that when she was having difficulty, the best way to deal with her emotions was through writing. So she eventually came to that place with her mother, and then she learned to listen to her mother more, and that it actually inspired the Joy Luck Club. So there's all kinds of interesting connections in her personal life to her fiction that she has written. And the director, James Redford, does a fantastic job of respecting her, respecting her privacy, but telling her story in a very empathetic way. And he does all kinds of unique things too. There's a lot of animation in it, and it's a wonderful film. So I highly recommend that as well. I had a great time watching the films. I hope you all enjoy them.
I guess it's my turn, right? I watched only 2 films, and they couldn't be more different than one another. One was sort of a more, I'd say, entertainment value film. It was called The Columnist. It is called The Columnist, and it was made in the Netherlands. And it was billed as kind of a comedy horror film. So it is actually about a woman who's she writes a column for a magazine, or a magazine, I guess. It was never quite clear. She's a columnist. And she begins to become obsessed with the comments in the comment sections on her columns, the very negative comments in the comment section of her columns. And as she clicks through them, she gets angrier and angrier. And so she begins to take some revenge against the people that have written these, written these comments. So maybe there might be some murder with multiple different tools. She has like a bag that she has, I don't know, like 5 different tools in that she uses for her forays. At the same time, though, she's raising a teen girl who's in her high school is on this mission to talk about free speech. So there's this kind of conflict, though this is kind of a light movie, sort of a light movie, there's a little bit of a depth to it in terms of, while the mother is like, you can't, say anything you want about me, the daughter's like, you should be able to say whatever you want, and then she does get involved in a romantic relationship with a guy that's a horror writer. And, immediately, of course, the teen suspects him, but he is like the gentlest and sweetest of men. He meditates in the bedroom and that kind of thing. But so yeah, it's just kind of clever and really well acted and fun. And like I said, it has a few things that you can actually think about. And the ending is like, mwah, visually and yeah. And kind of it leaves you hanging a little bit. So yeah. So that one was good. Not a great film, but it was eminently watchable. So the other film I watched is called The Dog Who Wouldn't Be Quiet, and it's an Argentinian film, and very short, like maybe 76, 80-minute film, and all in black and white. Very quiet film about one man, Sebastian, and his life, and kind of it jumps around through different moments in his life. Some very sort of simple, some kind of weird, like at one point a meteor falls from the sky and makes throws a gas out where everyone has to either be under 4 feet or wear a helmet. And then in the next scene, all that's gone, and he's living it. But it's as if it was really well done, and there's drawings in it that sort of illustrate some of the story. It's a movie that's difficult to explain because it's not really plot driven. It's just more about the life of this one particular character and kind of the things he goes through. It's a visually really beautiful film. Like I said, it's all in black and white, and he's a really sort of gentle person as well. And I was it was kind of a little mesmerizing gem of a movie, like, nothing flashy, but really interesting and beautiful about life. Yeah, so I love that one too. So I was very lucky to be able to watch both of those.
Yeah, they both sound great. All the movies you guys watched sounded awesome. I'm so excited to be able to watch some of these movies alongside you soon, hopefully on some of the streaming services we offer, or we'll see more distribution of them picked up soon. But thanks so much for sharing the movies you watched. Was there anything else you guys wanted to say about your experience with the film fest?
No, it was really easy. The app was great. It worked, very smoothly. Yeah.
I agree. It was super easy. And I personally, because I watched 3 foreign films, I watched them on my iPad with my headphones. And it for me, it makes it so much easier to watch foreign films because I have bad eyesight. So to be able to read subtitles on a screen, I just felt like it was in my ears and the subtitles were right there. So I enjoyed it that much more. But it was a great fest. I loved it.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, they did a great job. Well,
Thanks
thanks so
for
much for
watching.
talking to me today. You guys have a great day.
Thank you, Beth.
Thanks, Beth.